It's 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger is lost, Halley's Comet returns for the first time in 76 years, and Top Gun is breaking box office records across America. In the investment world, pension fund managers are obsessed with one thing: picking the right stocks and the right managers to pick them. But three researchers are asking a different question: not which stocks to own, but what actually drives the returns of a managed portfolio. Welcome to the papers that changed investing. Before Brinson, Hood, and Beebower, the investment industry was focused on the wrong decisions. Pension fund sponsors were hiring armies of managers. The obsession was stock picking. Which manager would outperform? Which securities would beat the benchmark? Nobody was asking a more fundamental question: does any of it actually drive performance? The assumption, never tested, was that clever stock selection and market timing were the real drivers. Asset allocation, the decision of how to split a portfolio between stocks, bonds, and cash, was treated as background noise. Brinson and his colleagues saw the gap. Someone had to measure what actually mattered. Their insight was elegant. If you could decompose every portfolio return into three components: asset allocation policy, market timing, and security selection, you could measure the contribution of each. Here's the brilliant part: they built a framework to do exactly that. A simple grid separating what a portfolio earned from its long-term asset allocation from what it earned or lost through active management decisions. Think of it like cooking. The ingredients in the recipe determine what the dish becomes. The seasoning can tweak the flavor, but it can't turn a soup into a cake. Brinson, Hood, and Beebower suspected that in investing, asset allocation was the recipe. They set out to prove it. Brinson, Hood, and Beebower didn't just theorize, they tested it. They gathered 10 years of quarterly data from 91 large pension plans, 1974 to 1983. For each plan, they calculated the return from simply holding passive index funds at its long-term policy weights. They called this the policy return. Then, they compared that policy return against what each plan actually earned through active management. The key statistical measure was the R-squared, the percentage of each fund's variation in returns over time, explained by its asset allocation policy. So, what did Brinson, Hood, and Beebower find? First, asset allocation policy explained, on average, 93.6% of the variation in returns over time. Not total return, the variation. In individual plans, the range was 75.5 to 98.6%. Policy was driving the ride. Second, active management on average reduced returns. Market timing cost the average plan 66 basis points per year. Security selection cost another 36 basis points. Combined active decisions erased 1.10% of return annually. The passive policy benchmark returned 10.11% a year. Actual portfolios returned just 9.01%. Third, a 1991 replication using 82 different pension plans reached the same conclusion. This became known as the Brinson Attribution Framework, the standard tool for investment performance analysis. Here's why this matters for your money today. Most investors spend their energy on the decisions that matter least: which stocks to buy, which manager to hire, when to get in or out. Those are the seasoning, not the recipe. Brinson, Hood, and Beebower showed that your long-term asset allocation, how you divide your portfolio between stocks, bonds, and other asset classes, shapes most of your investment experience over time. Roger Ibbotson and Paul Kaplan extended this work in 2000. Roughly 90% of a fund's variation in returns is driven by asset allocation. About 40% of the performance differences between funds traces back to it. And on average, 100% of the absolute return level is explained by policy. IFA anchors every client portfolio around a deliberate asset allocation, informed by decades of research, including this paper. The paper won the Graham and Dodd Award as the outstanding article in the Financial Analysts Journal. It remains one of the most cited works in investment management. Get the recipe right. Everything else is secondary. Perfect. Want to see how these asset allocation principles can work in your own portfolio? The research gives you a clear starting point.